All right, okay, thank you. Good evening once again. Thank you all for registering and attending this 1 week national level online faculty development program on Indian Knowledge Systems, IKS, organized by the UGC Malavia Mission Teacher Training Center, UGC MMTTC, Guwahati University, and the Internal Quality Assurance Cell of Guwahati University, Guwahati, Assam, in association with the IPSR Solutions Limited. We would like to welcome again Dr. Suresh Nambudri, who is the Director of IPSR Solutions Limited and SPO Technologies Pune. And we would like to welcome all the FDP resource persons, managers, directors, principals, vice principals, representatives from management, HODs, IQC coordinators, and all faculty members. Now, about this FTP, this was a 1 week FTP program with a live timing from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. This is our last day of the FTP. Now, if you still want to receive the LMS access and to process your certificate, you need to pay rupees 500 to the account details which have been shared in the chat. Okay. Now, all the participants who made the payment will receive the LMS access, the video recordings for all the days, and the provision to download your FTP completion certificate. The procedure for receiving the certificate, I will inform you at the end of today, after the session. If you are unable to attend any of the live session, the recording will be available in the LMS. We have shared LMS access details through email to those who have shared the payment proof through WhatsApp till yesterday. Those who have shared the details today will receive the LMS access details later in the evening or by tomorrow. If you have any trouble in attending the WebEx online session, you can also join using the YouTube live link. The live link I will put in the chat now. My name is Sijan Jacob George. I'm working as Global Relations Manager with IPSR Solutions Limited, and I'll be the event moderator. Now, before we move on to the session, if you all could please turn on your videos, we would like to take some screenshots for our documentation purpose. All right, I think you can turn off your videos now. We will move on to today's FTP session. The topic is going to be regenerate and sacred obligation. This is going to be taken by Dr. Suresh Nambudri, who is the Director at IPSR Solutions Limited and SPO Technologies. Over to you, sir. People who have kept your videos on, could you please turn it off? Yeah, please turn off your videos.
It's 7:00 p.m.
So today is the final day of our this series of faculty development program, and good evening to all. So today we are going to speak about something very interesting. Means that is something we are coming to the climax. The first day we spoke about recognizing. Means we should recognize what we were, and then we can recognize what we are. And second day we went in detail about what was the type of people who really created such a magnificent contributions. So we spoke about tapas. Tapas has got 4 pillars. Pillar number 1 is to make a human human. And second, it is Ashtanga Yoga. Third one is Adhikara. And fourth one is Samvedana. And we know that make human human, that is predominantly that was about oral tradition. We spoke about AF, that is that white highway between our mouth and the brain, and that is what actually linking our speaking and thinking. We have seen a famous quotation by a Nobel laureate by saying that we think because we speak. So in such a situation, what we did is that we removed speaking from the entire curriculum. So here our first point was to make human human, and the second was Patanjali Yoga Sutra, Ashtanga Yoga. Ashtanga Yoga is one of the rarest set of skills in the world where Bloom's all three domains converge, and that is what the real application, real solution for a career with generative AI. And third one is adhikara. Adhikara is not about power or authority. Adhikara is the prerequisite we build in ourselves. With this prerequisite, we become eligible. And we spoke about our examinations here, right from JEE to civil service and GATE examination, and how we are ignoring adhikara in that. Then we came to the last one or fourth pillar, that was Samvedana. Samvedana is the most important thing. It is noticing. I told the examples. We in India, we live in the middle of problems, but we don't recognize, we don't notice our problem. Noticing is the first step of finding a solution for a problem. Therefore, when we stop it at the noticing itself, then how we can be a problem solver. So that was our tapas. That was a day 2. Yesterday we spoke about vikrama. Vikrama was a very different concept. Vikrama means we are transcending the step, or transcending means we are going beyond. Or the main essence of that particular session was that how we succeeded with the constraints. How we succeeded with the constraints. We have seen multiple, or I think minimum 15 to 20 examples we have seen, and we have gone through what are all the tapas attributes really helped them to succeed with that constraint. I repeat, the first day we recognized our achievements. Second day it was tapas. We really defined what was the capabilities that actually built those super men and super women. And yesterday we went through those achievements, that is succeed within constraints, with the constraints. So each example we have taken, and we went through what was the constraint in that, and what was the ability formed from tapas really helped it. Why are we going in this way? Because we are all teachers and faculty members. We are the builders of this 2047 developed country, Vikasit Bharat. In that situation, our objective is not a domain-locked example. Because many people in IKS, they say, take temple architecture, give that one to architecture. Take something from something from Arthashastra and give to commercial people. That is not the way a nation is built. That is not the way China is built. That is not the way Japan is built. Because I am repeating this example. Take a good thing, understand, and extract the key principle. This principle will not be domain specific, which can be applied everywhere. For example, a war, an example from Arthashastra can go to software development, can go to shipbuilding, and can go to food technology. And and an example from temple architecture. This can also can go to software. It can go to full technology. Therefore, we should not think for domain locked. That is the reason we have gone to the root skill of everything. That is why we created that tapas. This tapas is a common that can be applied across a domain. That can be the nation building. Each brick of this tapas, that is what the nation building. So we discussed about that one yesterday. So today we are going to speak about something. Our next step of that means yesterday we spoke about constraint, how to succeed within constraint. Today we are going to discuss about something very important, that is with what we have, how to make things what others don't have. With what we have, how to create things what others don't have. That is what the originality, that is what the innovation, that is what our ancient Indian education system, they succeeded. They all developed with what they had. They developed the things with the other people never had. That is the reason Aryabhatta or Nilakanta Somayaji or or Brahmagupta, whatever they developed, it took thousands or 500 years for another person to replicate that. That is what actually the capability. And we are all standing with the same DNA and with the same capability. And there is something which is actually, there is something material level, elemental level that is missing in us. That is what the change is required. Change is not required in compliance. Change is not required for required in the surface level. We need change in the material level, and that is not in the curriculum. And Indian knowledge system can actually build that particular point. I repeat it. What India needs is not in the regular curriculum. And what India needs is not asked in NAC. It is not asked in NIRF. Actually, what exactly required is the change in the material of thinking. It is not done in IIT. It is not done in IISc. It is not done in any of the universities. That is why Indian knowledge system is going to be a very, very important thing. If we can apply the real principles of making human and the complete tapas 4 pillars, and understand from each example how they built themselves, and then how they succeeded with the constraint, how they invented with what they had. And therefore today we are going to speak about origination and invention, how they did, and what was the Indian invention pipeline, how it was. Yesterday we explained that what was the process, for succeeding under constraint. We discussed 4 acts for that. Today we are going to discuss a 6-stage process that ancient Indians used for innovation. So before I start today's session, I want to tell you few things. Point number 1 is that never try to find equivalent in English on Western system for what we have in Indian knowledge system. Do you know why? Because both are coming from different cultures. I will tell you one very simple example. You know, you observe any family. There is a father culture, there is a mother culture. You go and ask something to father. Father's response is coming from several roots. That is from his radar. You ask the same thing to mother. Mother will be immediately thinking from another radar. Means what are the things in her radar will be that children kitchen or the food or there are many things like that. But when you are speaking about father, many things like societal thing, social, money, bank, all those things will come. So this is exactly the similar thing you will find when you are comparing Indian knowledge system with a different knowledge system, because our cultures are different. Last 3 days, I had been speaking about that. Today, I want to stress, because by seeing some of the responses, I thought that people are actually seeing 1:1 type of mapping. Let me tell you one very good example. Our culture is coming and it is reflected in our language. And our educational system is coming from that. Let me tell you one very good example. See, in German, there is a word called Schadenfreude. I don't know whether the pronunciation is exactly, because I heard it a long time before. You know, the meaning of that is the happiness by seeing somebody's sorrow. Happiness by seeing somebody's sorrow. This is the meaning of the word Schadenfreude. You know what? There is no equivalent word in English for this. There's no equivalent word. Maybe Anglo-Saxon people, they decided that we don't want a word for this, because English has got more than something around 1,70,000 or some 2 lakh powerful vocabulary. Still, they don't have a word for this. And interestingly, I will tell you one thing. When I was in Spain, I heard one particular word. It is called sobremesa. You know what is a sobremesa? Is a word. That word is after dinner, continue sitting on the dining table and speaking so many things. That is what sobremesa. This is integral part of Spanish culture, so they have a word for that. Many other cultures, they do not have. Similarly, when we are speaking about Indian knowledge system, we have got a very, very specific thing. Don't look for equivalent. I told you specifically one fundamental thing. I told you this about that Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. People immediately think that Shravana is cognitive, Manana is affective. There is no comparison like that. Shravana is only a process of listening. Manana is a cognitive plus affective, because we don't listen anything without a value system. We don't listen anything without emotion. In our culture, just mechanical listening is no. Mechanical thinking is not there. Manana means we are thinking with emotion, thinking with the value system. Empty thinking is not there for Indians. So therefore, there is no meaning of this comparison. Similarly, when we come to Nididhyasana, it is not a directly psychomotor domain, because we do not work without emotion. We do not work without value system. Therefore, affective domain is attached to psychomotor domain. So therefore, when Bloom's speak about 3, we have got only 2. That is not a weakness. That is our strength. That is our culture. Therefore, with this, let me go directly to our today's program. And today's program, let me open this, and I am going to share this. I hope you can see my dark rectangle here. Please tell yes or no.
Yes, sir. Visible.
Yes. Yes, you can see.
Our designs will endure. Continue testing the simulations.
The data is aligning.
So this is what our 4th day of Sthira Sukham Adhyayanam. Sthira Sukham Adhyayanam, applied IKS for an AI era. Applied Indian knowledge system for an AI era. Now, let me speak about this. We lived in a civilization where there was no borrowed answer. We found answers. No formula for what is about to happen. We envisaged. No instrument except a mind stilled to the point of transparency. We used our tapas and we built our mind. A question had been open for a generation. Means we have, even though we never had a paper, even with the oral tradition, as I was telling you yesterday, astronomy, certain celestial objects come only once in 12 years, once in 18 years. And in one generation, a person could see that celestial object maybe 2 or 3 times if he was lucky. In such a thing, they observed for centuries. Now just imagine what was the communication, oral communication that is preserved from one generation to another generation. The notation did not exist. The tradition said this far, no further. And then in the space between one breath and the next, something arrived that had never existed anywhere before. Not retrieved, no cut copy paste, not inferred, not received, originated. Originated. Today's question is not what was produced, not how constraint was endured, that we have seen yesterday, but this, how does a human mind in a single unwitnessed moment produce something the world has never held? And what was built inside that mind across years of formation so that when the moment arrived, it could receive what come. So that is what today we are going to speak about, how our our ancestors originated. So our day one was recognized, that was pratyapijna. Day two was forge, tapas. Day three was exceed, it is vikrama. And day four, today it is originate, pratibha. Where did genuinely new ideas come from and what made them possible? That is what we are going to speak today. Now, Sthira Sukham Athyayanam. There are 3 sections for Pratibha. Section A, the Indian theory of innovation. Section B, innovation case studies, process plus product. What was the real process of that innovation in each area? When we are speaking about one innovation, we have to see how they did that. Unless we do that particular evaluation, we cannot create a set of students they can do that. Means one can really listen the stories and go. You know what? There is a quotation about history. The main thing about history is that nobody learns anything. No, what we learn from history is that we don't learn anything from history. In most places, Indian knowledge system is like that. We don't learn anything, tell some stories, speak some history, tell some religion, and go home. Here we are not going to do that. We are going to see that what made them, what was the underlying process, and how to extract and how to take the abstract of that and how to replicate that in our own society, in our own institution. So section A, we are coming to the next one. Section A, the Indian theory of innovation. It's a detailed study of all those innovation. And now let us see, where did the new come from? New means the new things, new concept, new products, a new idea, new processes. Where did the new come from? It didn't fall from the sky. It didn't grow on a plant. It really came from some other place. What is that? A civilization produced, still no one could replicate for 300 years. Surgery that modern medicine still uses. Temples that unified astronomy, engineering, and consecration in one act. Mathematical frameworks that arrived 200 years before Europe. Water systems that maintained themselves across dynasties. That was not luck. That was not resources. That was not accident. Today we go inside the process by which these things were made possible. That is what we are going to do today. So now let us see here next. Now, yesterday we had Vikrama. Vikrama's question and the deeper one. We asked, how did India succeed under constraint? We found 4 named cognitive operation, and we call it as vikrama kriya. Vikrama kriya means that was a process, that was a cognitive, or that was the operations which we used to succeed under constraint. Vikrama kriya, that was viveka, perceiving essential structure beneath the surface complexity, and anuvritti, applying the same recursive operation at every scale. Maryada, the constraint as the specification of excellence. This is very important point. Constraint, my limitation is my list design brief. My limit, my constraints are my design brief. I am going to work on that. Meta, the trained mind as a living generative instrument. Together, these are vikrama, the step beyond what circumstance permits. Vikrama is tapas. Vikrama is tapas. This is proven in the field. Pratibha now asks the question that remains. Where did the ideas come from in the first place? How this idea came? You know, what is happening in India is the scarcity of idea. The relationship is precise. Vikrama and Pratibha both follow from tapas, that is day to tapas. The Vikrama Kriya frequently are the path through which Pratibha arrives. The formed mind engages, constrained through Viveka, Anuvritti, Maryada, Meta, and Pratibha arises within or at the completion of that engagement. Vikrama clears the ground. Pratibha, that is origination, is that grows in it. The complete causal chain is like this now. Formation, that is tapas. Samvedana, noticing, means we are tapas formed mind. We have got samvedana, noticing. That is tapa, formed mind is noticing. And then vikrama kriya, those 4 processes. Then that is leading to pratibha, origination. This is what the causal chain. We are going to speak more about that. Vikrama was what formation permits under pressure. Pratibha is what formation produces when the pressure has done its work, and the formed mind meets the unknown with the full presence. The 4 pillars that made Pratibha possible. You have seen that one, those 4 pillars, that is a day 2, that is our formation, that is oral tradition, yoga as Purna Vikasa. That means Ashtanga Yoga, and the third is Adhikara and Samvedana. I am not going to speak more about that. Therefore, the formation outcome, the permanent perceptual architecture that makes accurate noticing the practitioner's natural cognitive mode. That is what Natya Shastra Sakhyadaya, same-hearted, is its apex. The formed empathic perceiver whose mirror of the heart has been polished through training until it reflects accurately. So main thing is that this is the opposite of what is happening in India today. The cognitive infrastructure was built first. Cognitive infrastructure was built first. Not the cement and concrete infrastructure is not built first. Cognitive infrastructure was built first. The disciplines were the application that came later. Now we are speaking about Samvedana, that is second point, that is before the engine fires, the steering. Samvedana is the rare ability, smart ability, brilliant ability of noticing. Our main problem is we are not noticing. Here there are PhD people with the mechanical engineering. They cannot notice any of the mechanical engineering even surrounding their homes. They cannot find a problem within mechanical engineering. They want someone else to go and tell them a research paper idea. You do research in this, then they will so like that. This is what the type of the insulated tunnel vision people we create now. This is Indian knowledge system is the solution for that. So therefore, we are going to speak. About this Samvedana. Now see this Samvedana. Samvedana. Consider 3 achievers already familiar with our day 1 to day 3. That is from our Pratyapijna to our Vikrama. Kerala mathematician. What made him to notice that the relationship between circle and its diameter was an open question worth a lifetime of a mathematical lineage effort? Not assigned, they noticed. Nobody told them to go and invent pi. They noticed, they understood something. They understood, they invented. The surgeon Shushruta, what made him notice that the patient's fear and the surgeon's steadiness were as clinically significant as the sharpness of the instrument? What made him, this is what he was noticing, Samvedana. Panini, what made him notice that grammatical corruption was causing actual suffering? What the degradation of meaning when language loses its structure was a problem worth a life's work. These people, they spent their life investing in, they noticed something and they found it is worth noticing. Noticing is one thing, and with their tapas, with their intelligence, they are realizing that it is worth noticing. And in every case, before the cognitive engine engaged, a noticing happened first, an attunement to what was actually present, a caring about the problem before the problem solving began. This is what Samvedana's role in Pratibha, day 4. So unless we have Samvedana, there is no vikrama, there is no Pratibha. That is what actually happening here. We have got many institutions of national importance with a lot of taxpayers' money spent. But thing is that ultimately there is no Samvedana there. There is no Adhikara there. That is the reason there is no vikrama there. There is no pratibha there. So this is a practitioner formed in pillar 1 through 3, but not in Samvedana, is a powerful engine that fires at whatever problem arrives by the institutional assignment. They need a problem to be given to them. They are actually Lord Macaulay's children. They open their mouth and speak against Macaulay, but they are Macaulay's grandchildren. So a practitioner formed in all 4 pillars cannot walk past what actually matters. This is what the golden sentence of Samvedana. A practitioner formed in all 4 pillars of tapas cannot walk past what actually matters. That person will stand. That person will look, that person will analyze, he will define, he will analyze, he will evaluate, then he will create. That is what actually the effect of Indian knowledge system. Indian knowledge system is not the teaching of history. Indian knowledge system is a powerful weapon for India to become a Vikasit Bharat if applied appropriately. If applied in this way. We have got first day recognition, second day tapas, complete list of forming a mind. Third is that succeed under constraint. Fourth, how to with what we have, how to create what other people don't have. Now we are coming to that particular point. That is what pratibha. What is pratibha? Prati in Sanskrit it is toward. Prati, toward. Bha means light or luminosity, the flash of original illumination. So that is what the originality, that is what the invention. It is not memory, it is not inference, not received teaching, a genuinely new thing. So that is what pratibha is, the natural output of a properly formed mind. Now, let us see this one. The verse behind innovation. What is this? Pratibhat va sarvam. From pratibha, all knowledge arises. From pratibha. This is what Yoga Sutra 3.33, Patanjali Yoga Sutra. And why this matters today? Patanjali is not describing mystical inspiration reserved for saints. He is describing the natural cognitive output of a properly formed mind, our day 2 tapas, and prescribing in books 1 and 2 of the same text the exact formation system that produces it reliably. Book 1 to build the infrastructure, book 3 is what the infrastructure produces. This is what tapas day 2 to pratibha day 4 today. Causal chain, we have seen that now stated in one text. The three preconditions of pratibha. Now we are coming one by one. What are all the three preconditions of pratibha? Pratibha does not come from nowhere. It is the output of a specific process, and the process begin with the tapas. That is a day 2. Precondition 1, formed human beings. We described this several times. Precondition 2, vikrama engagement. We discussed it yesterday. Viveka, Anuvritti, Maryada, Meta, we discussed yesterday. These 4 operations, that is what we call Vikrama Kriya. Vikrama Kriya is the second precondition. First precondition is tapas formed mind. Second precondition is Vikrama Kriya, that is Vikrama engagement or Vikrama operation. And precondition 3 is Sunya of assumption. Sunyata of assumption, the deliberate emptying of borrowed framework. Let you come clean, meeting the problem as if for the first time. What Patanjali calls nirodha. This emptying is only available to a formed mind. If you are going to carry everything, if your mind is not formed, you are not going to get anything. That is what, even in Bloom's taxonomy, when we are seeing that one inter-domain progression, you will see that before create, there is characterization. Before characterization, there is articulation. Before articulation, there is evaluation. So these are all the way in which it is progressing. This is what exactly precondition 3, shunyata of assumption. This is what emptying is the only available to a formed mind. So form mind. In our universities, in our educational institution, right from every institution, are we building that tapas? No, it is not building. A formed mind can afford to wait in the emptiness, because its infrastructure is already intact. The beginner's mind only works in the expert's skull. Beginners, this is what the golden sentence, if you can carry today. A beginner's mind. The beginner's mind only works in the expert's skull. Expert's skull. When I was in Japan, that was a saying. Many people think that when something is complicated, come. Okay, let us start with a beginner's mind. Let us start with a beginner's mind. So there is no prejudice, nothing. We are starting with that tapas formed mind. Pratibha, original perception arising from the convergence of formation, constraint, and presence. Not a gift, not genius, a structural inevitability. What is innovation without a theory of the innovator? Ancient Indian innovations were not for promotion, not for career advancement. And no one put a rule for the promotion, because when they made the formed mind, when they went through this process, origination automatically happened. Modern innovation frameworks are obsessed with process design, team structure, ideation technique, funding model, all those things. Almost none of them ask what kind of person is capable of originating something genuinely new. India asked this question first, and they answered it with a complete documented, neurologically grounded formation system. If the person is not formed, no process produces pratibha. If the person is formed, almost any process suffices, it will produce pratibha. The bottleneck is not the method, it is the mind. And we are about to show exactly what that matters mechanistically. I told you that Duryodhana, Pandava, Kaurava example yesterday. The Kauravas decided to take all infrastructure, all soldiers, all war equipments, and Pandavas decided to accept one person with one condition, that he would never touch a weapon. And you know who won the war. But India never learned from that. We are all going with infrastructure. How much money is spent for building the teachers' mental infrastructure and students' mental infrastructure? whether they know what is Indian knowledge system, tapas system. No. This is what actually the problem we face in our country. Now, let us come here. This Yoga Sutra is not a spiritual text. It is an innovation manual. Patanjali's Yoga Sutra is a guide of spiritual liberation, useful for yogis, irrelevant to the engineers and science. This is what the common assumption. But please understand, there is no religion in that. Whatever I am speaking, Indian knowledge system, there is no religion in that. Because in Indian knowledge system, there is no religion. There is in Upanishads and Vedas, there is no religion. These are all philosophy. These are all important things. Really stand neck to neck with or better than any other philosophies in the world. Compete enough. Only thing is that due to some reason we stopped looking at it. That is the reason we are discussing these things today. So what the text actually says, Yoga Sutra. Yoga Sutra 3, it is Vibhuti Pada, describes specific cognitive states that produce. Please understand how scientific it is. And please understand, if we are applying this thing to our educational system and how maybe even before 2047, we can become Viksit Bharat. Now, direct perception of hidden structures, Sutra 3.26. Knowledge of arrangement and sequences, Sutra 3.27. Understanding of another person's mind, Sutra 3.19. Knowledge through intuitive flash, Sutra 3.33. We spoke about 3.33 just 2 slides before. The connection to tapas. These states are reached through samyama, so Sutra 3.4. Dharana plus dhyana. Dharana and dhyana, they are from the Ashtanga yoga. They are from 6 and 7. Then samadhi, practiced as a unified whole. I told you yesterday that samadhi doesn't mean that we are going to die. Samadhi means that we are reaching that particular state. That is what the state in which we are reaching the apex of various things. And that is what if you are interested in certain points, if you are interested in software, if you are interested in mechanical engineering, your samadhi will be that you will be converging all the top capabilities. That is the place in which you forget yourself. So here the cognitive skill, tri-domain naturalization to samyama, ready mind, that will lead to pratibha. Now let us go straight away from here. Now from theory to mechanism, we are coming to really what is the mechanism for the theory, for the pratibha. We now have the theory. Pratibha is the natural output of a formed mind under constraint, emptied of borrowed answers. This is what actually pratibha, that is origination for us. According to Indian knowledge system, pratibha is equal to natural output of a formed mind under constraint, emptied of borrowed answers. So before we enter the evidence gallery, I am going to show you like I have shown the walk gallery on day 1. Walk gallery, and yesterday I have shown you several examples with how they did it, how they succeeded with the constraints. So today we are going to see similar examples and how they innovated and what was the process of that innovation. So before, I call it as evidence gallery. Before we examine the steel, the surgery, temples, the mathematics, we must answer the precise question that a scientist or engineer in this session will be holding. How exactly does formation produce origination? This is what the question everyone I know sitting here would like to ask. How exactly does formation produce origination? What is the mechanism stated in terms that can be examined, tested, and defended? What I am going to speak in this session, it can be examined, tested, and defended. It is falsifiable. Falsifiable. The next 6 slides answer that question with the full trigger, no hand waving, the bomb before the gallery. The civilizational operating system where we are, before the mechanisms and orientation, 5 days of this program, one system, here is where day 4 Pratibha sits within it. Now, let me show you the flow chart. This is what real Indian knowledge system, forward-looking Indian knowledge system. If anyone wants, you can take a photograph of this. Otherwise, this will be available in LMS. So, first tapas, that was day 1, 4 pillars, and the four pillars, and samvedana identified prayojana. This is actually coming to research methodology and invention methodology of ancient Indian education system or Indian knowledge system. Samvedana, noticing, identifying prayojana, the problem worth the full force of system. And from there starts the vikrama kriya. We discussed yesterday, viveka, the act, that produces Saukshma in the result in Pratibha, krama, the 6-stage process. 6-stage process of origination. That is what Pratibha krama, Pratibha's progress. And in Vikrama, it is Viveka, Maryada, Anuvritti, and Medha. And these creates this build. Saukshma, the result, Avasara, the experience, Tantra, the structure. This leads to Pratibha, the moment of arrival. And when we do this innovation, from there we get Siddhanta. Siddhanta means the proven insight. That is what ultimately the total. If I say Vikrama, I will definitely tell that Vikrama is something like a development. But when I speak about Pratibha, that is actually the research and innovation. Please understand Vikrama, because we have got things, and we are with what we have, we are succeeding there. That is what it is, already development. But when it is coming to Pratibha, in Pratibha krama, we are having 6-stage process of innovation and research. This is what ultimately we come to that Pratibha stage. It's a moment of arrival. We arrived at the research stage. We broke the ribbon, and that is the moment of Pratibha. And when after this Pratibha or during this Pratibha, we sit and check what went right and what went wrong. That is the place in which we develop Siddhanta. That is the place in which we develop Siddhanta. That is the place in which we are able to publish a breakthrough research. I hope you understood this. So the system is a cycle, not a ladder. And after Siddhanta, what are we going to do? After Siddhanta, we go back to tapas. It's a lifelong learning. We are actually going back to that lifelong learning. So this is what exactly Indian knowledge system. Glorification of the past is not Indian knowledge system. Speaking about some religious thing is not Indian knowledge system. Indian knowledge system is this. We have to understand we have to really understand what made them successful and understand those things, replicate in our life, because we are going to live in the future. We are not going to live in the past. So therefore, let us make it in a way that is implementable. Tomorrow, Monday morning, when you go to the classroom, implementable. That is what our objective. That is the reason we are sitting here. So the system is a cycle, not a ladder. The tapas form the person. Vikrama asks, how does that formed person exceeds what circumstances permits? Now today, Pratibha asks, how does that person originate the genuinely new? How does that same person originate the genuinely new? And from where does the genuinely new arise in a formed mind? And then tomorrow, then the next one is how does that person return what was received? That is about sustenance. So handshake, vikrama kriya, pratibha krama, and the whole human. Let me show you one thing here. This you will see a mapping here. It is about Vikrama Kriya Act, that is Viveka, Maryada, Anivritti, Medha, and all three converging. And what is Bloom's taxonomy's capability required for that? This we are comparing with Bloom's taxonomy only because one of the mandate, one of the requirement of Indian knowledge system is that we have to understand the things from the past and we have to try to implement and we have to implement it for the future. Therefore, this comparison is very comparison. It is not a equal, means one is equal to one type of a comparison, but it is the most reliable comparison. So Viveka is cognitive analysis, affective valuing. This combination is Viveka. And in Pratibha Krama stage, it is Saukshya. If the fine-grained structural clarity that accumulates, this is what the mapping there. Maryada, accepting constraint as specification, cognitive evaluation, affective organization. And in the case of Pratibha Krama, it is coming to Avasara, that is urgency felt, precision now non-negotiable. Anuvritti plus Medha, recursive operation, trained mind as instrument. And when it is coming to Bloom's almost equivalent, cognitive synthesis or creation, and then psychomotor. In psychomotor, articulation and neutralization. Then it is coming to Pratibha Krama. It is Tantra, the generative pattern held and built. Then all three converging. Okay, this we will come to this in a different one. Now let us see the handshake. Now we are coming to a very, very important point. The handshake, Vikrama Kriya, Pratibha Krama, and the whole human continued, forming AI irreplaceable future generation. This is the actually tapas formed mind. With this, with Vikrama and with Pratibha, how they become AI irreplaceable. You know that generative AI has taken away entire cognitive area. Cognitive area, now there is no meaning of going and competing there. It is exactly like me competing with a car because I cannot run. No, not even the best human runner cannot beat a car. Therefore, no meaning of competing there. That is exactly happening with the cognitive side of Bloom's taxonomy. And please understand, in Indian universities, what we are teaching only the cognitive side of the Bloom's taxonomy. Means what we are teaching in Indian universities are almost completely taken away by the generative AI. And most universities, they don't understand this at all. They are teaching students AI tools without knowing that if something can be made to an AI tool, there is no need of that student there because it is already proved that that particular thing can be done by generative AI, so a human mediator is not required. So what we should be developing our students in our campuses are AI irreplaceable capabilities. That one, even I don't think 1% of our universities and colleges understood this, creating AI replaceable competencies. So Therefore, what happens in the next in this? I know some of the universities heavily depending upon MBAs. MBAs are the maximum hit. Almost 80% of MBA employment will go away because of the AI agents and AI tools. People do not understand, they still teaching AI tools. This is what the solution here through Indian knowledge system. Because tapas formed mind with this one, D3 and D4, they are going to develop the situation. They can challenge AI and they will not be replaced by AI. So if we see like this, AI achieves Bloom's cognitive L1 to L6 with the extraordinary competence. In processes, analysis, synthesis, evaluates, and generates. In cognitive domain alone, it cannot achieve valuing of affective, characterization of affective, naturalization of psychomotor, and manana, nididhyasana, it cannot do. So that AI can amplify the cognitive stages of every vikrama kriya act and pratibha krama stage. AI can amplify. AI cannot supply the affective and psychomotor dimension that make those stages real. So the formed human is not competing with the AI. The formed human is operating in a register AI cannot enter. AI cannot enter. So in a world where AI performs cognitive creation, the only irreplaceable human contribution is the tri-domain integrated act. The whole human, not the thinking machine. Thinking machine is already gone. There is no meaning of competing with them. Tapas is the formation of the whole human. Whole human. Vikrama Kriya and Pratibha Krama are the expressions of the whole human. This is why formation has never mattered more than now. That is the reason Indian knowledge system in the right way, it is to be implemented now to challenge generative AI, to develop a country with youth who are not becoming unemployed because of generative AI. That is the main thing. Now, let us come to another important section. 5 obstacles to original perception according to Indian knowledge system. 5 obstacles to original perception. That is a pratibha. Original perception is not blocked by lack of information. Information is there. It is blocked by 5 specific measurable cognitive obstacles. The first is upstream of all the others. Let us see. Obstacle 0, that is a upstream. Problem blindness. I heard one very big academician was telling that, okay, let them tell the problem, we will find solution. That is actually surrendering. That is actually insulting oneself. You grew through, you passed all those examinations in a particular domain without even getting a sense of ground reality and without even understanding what is the problem related to that. If I am a mechanical engineer sitting with the BTech, MTech, MPA, PhD, and if I say that I don't know the problems that can be solved with the mechanical engineering, then you please kill me, shoot me dead. I am ready to die for that because I got self-respect. So here the obstacle 0, upstream, problem blindness, the failure to notice that a problem worth solving is present at all. Before cognitive load, DMN, attention capture or motivational contamination can even become relevant. Now let us see this one by one. First, it was obstacle 0, that is problem blindness, and how it is eliminated. Samvedana, building the ability for noticing. That is what in Indian knowledge system, Samvedana. Obstacle 1, cognitive load, working memory consumed by domain competence retrieval. I will tell you example. If I am driving a car, if every time, if I have to use a clutch or gear or steering to left or right, if I have to see the instruction manual, when I am driving, where is the cognitive load? What is the cognitive load? I am going to spend maximum time for seeing the seeing the instructions and all. By that time, I will not have the creativity, I will not have the logic, I may miss, I may go and crash somewhere. This is what exactly Indian knowledge system is speaking about cognitive load. In cognitive load, what it says, whatever field you are in, with the tapas mind, you become conversant with that. Your mind is not your mind, your cognitive energy is not spent on what can be written, what can be read, because it is already there. It has become naturalized. Whatever your key work is, you become naturalized in that. Therefore, your mind is ready for innovation. Now we are coming obstacle 2, default mode network activation. What is a default mode network? You know that the ego protection network running in the background. What will this discovery mean for my reputation? Does this contradict my previous work? Is this acceptable to my tradition? That is Rachel et al. The DMN activities during self-referential thought. In a non-trained mind, it runs continuously during complex problem solving. The DMN is the tax on original thinking. That is default mode network, DMN. Now we are coming to obstacle 3, attention capture, the gravitational pull of the existing framework. The most powerful distractor is not noise. It is the relevant but wrong signal. What the answer is supposed to be. You cannot see what you already know the shape of. This is what the critical point means. A prejudice. You cannot see what you already know the shape of. Obstacle 4, motivational contamination, instrumental motivation, pursuing discovery for recognition, credit, competitive advantage, splits the mind and creates a vested interest in specific types of outcomes. It cannot follow evidence to a conclusion that destroys its framework. The mind trying to own the discovery cannot find it. The mind trying to own the discovery cannot find it. Now let us see what tapas built and how pratibha becomes inevitable. Now I am going to show you how obstacles are cleaned. How obstacles are cleaned. There are obstacles here on the left-hand side. Problem blindness, tapas pillar, samvedana, vikrama kriya, tri-domain act, viveka. How pratibha is reached. The problem worth solving is identified. The engine has its target. Cognitive load, khanapada, that is naturalization. Then it is vikrama kriya, tri-domain act, meta. How pratibha is reached. Working memory, fully available for unknown, nothing held back. DMN activation, yoga samadhi, suppression, that is pillar 2. Then from vikrama kriya, it is maryada. So what I am coming to here is that through Indian knowledge system, we have got solution for removing all obstacles of innovation. All obstacles for innovation. We have got solution. Then we are coming to motivational contamination. That is pillar 3, adhikara. Means maryada plus anuvritti. The limit defines what excellence requires. Recursive engagement replaces competitive positioning. Then what is the how pratibha is reached? No vested interest in specific outcome. The work continues whether the problem leads. This is how pratibha is reached. How pratibha is reached. Now, once again, let us see here. This is what the Indian knowledge system, applied Indian knowledge system. Tapas, 4 pillars, samvedana, identifying prayojana, the problem worth the full force of the system. We have seen vikrama kriya, that was yesterday's. Pratibha krama, that is for today's, and we have seen that one vikrama kriya is a 4-step process, and in the case of innovation and research, it is pratibha krama. It is a 6-stage process. 6-stage process, and when we reach that pratibha, we are in a position to develop a Siddhanta out of that. Siddhanta, that is what the thing, that is the stage in which we have to go for Q1 publication, the best publication. That is the place in which we should be going. Now let us go ahead from here. Now I am going to show you one very interesting thing. It is an ability innovation table. If the mechanism is real, the evidence must show. We are all researchers. We are all from higher education, technical education. There is no dispute. If the mechanism is real, the evidence must show specific abilities, specific innovation. And between the ability and innovation, a specific vikrama kriya, the tri-domain act that bridge formation and breakthrough. Now, please let us see ability innovation table. This is what the ability innovation table. We have seen various things yesterday. We have seen this Wood's steel, one of the innovation. Europeans tried 300 years to copy wood steel. They didn't succeed. And what is the ability that produced it? Naturalized multi-representational processing, Kanapada, naturalized multi-representational processing. What is the Vikrama Kriya behind that? Meta plus Maryada. The trained mind holds the full thermal protocol as a living object. The constraint of functional failure specified the exact process required. And how we know? How our research found it? European replicators approached sequentially, one variable at a time. Sequential processing of a simultaneous multivariable protocol cannot reproduce it. Please understand the capability. Sequential processing of a simultaneous multivariable protocol cannot produce it. They did one by one. We did multi-core. We were firing multiple cylinders at a time. The failure mode reveals both the ability and the operation required. Now we are coming to another one, Shushruta surgery. And what was the ability produced it? Prerequisite based procedural transfer adhikara plus tri-domain integration. And what was the Vikrama Kriya? Maryada, the constraint of not having real patients specified the simulation training design with the complete precision. No constraint, no simulation, innovation. Now Shushruta named, now see this one, how we know. Shushruta named 7 prerequisites before training began. The simulation protocol itself is a Maryada innovation. The limit, no real patients, became the specification for a new training system. Kerala Infinite Series, what was the ability that produced it? Bidirectional processing plus spontaneous synthesis. It is Jatapata plus AF highway. You remember, on the second day we were speaking about AF highway. And what was the Vikrama Kriya? It is Anuvritti plus Meta. The same recursive operation applied at every scale. Now every scale held without notation by the trained mind as living instrument. So these are the ways in which we have solution. Means we understood what was the innovation, how that innovation happened, what type of a mind made it. Now we are very clear that this can be implemented in our colleges. That is what the mandate, that is what the requirement of Indian knowledge system. So the abilities came from one formation system. All these innovation abilities came from one formation system, and that one formation system, it is not in NAC. Now itself we know that why we are not performing. 6 domains, 6 innovation, 6 abilities. Now collapse the ability column. All 6 trace into the same 3 sources. From pillar 1, oral tradition, Pata system. From pillar 2, yoga purna vikasa, that is Ashtanga yoga. Then pillar 3, adhikara. Then pillar 4, samvedana. Then the cognitive infrastructure was built first. The disciplines were the applications. But we are only thinking about the application. We only think about the research paper. We don't think about the formation of that researcher, how that person formed his or her mind. So now let us see. When the formation was interrupted, what happened? If the causal chain is formation, abilities, innovation, then the chain also runs in this direction. Formation interrupted, abilities not built, innovation ceased. I told you to go and see Wikipedia list of inventors with 1,300 to 1,400 list of inventors, and you don't see any Indian there. Why? Because this, when the formation is interrupted. So when it is formation, abilities, innovation, it is formation interrupted, abilities not built, innovation ceased. Proof is on Wikipedia. This is not a claim about Indian intelligence. This is a claim about institutional infrastructure. The same thing happened to, okay, three mechanisms of interruption. Colonial macroeconomic. Okay, these are all the reason. We know that. One of the important thing is severing the oral transmission chain. This is what I wanted to tell you, that oral, I have attended many Indian knowledge system program. In that they just speak about oral tradition, written tradition, skill tradition, oral tradition, literature. Oral tradition is to be taken separately and put as a very big thing. That is a spine, that is a atma of Indian education, Indian system. Oral tradition is the atma. If you are going to put the atma along with the other things in a dustbin, then where our atma is going to be? This is what the real problem happened. You know what? If you go in Russian higher education, 60% of examination is oral. You go to US education system, without an oral thing, you cannot pass any good university there. Go to Japan, there is oral. Here, there are no oral. Even in IAS examination interview, you know that. Interview mark also added to the written examination. What is that oral? A country which is built with oral tradition, even people do not understand the value of that oral tradition. Oral tradition, how that AF is created in that, how that cognitive senate is built. The best way of learning is through debate. Shankaracharya, Mandana Mishra debate. Buddhism, that main learning of Buddhism was a debate. In Jainism, there was a debate. And here, only thing is that in our UGC and HGC only, I don't see any debate. I don't see any debate. We just totally remove the oral tradition. So severing of oral transmission chain. As I was telling you, some of the astronomy theories came with 150 years of observation. When there was no paper and pencil, how that particular knowledge was transferred. These are all oral tradition examples. Oral tradition example. The Pata system required an unbroken chain of trained practitioners. The Kanapadi teaching the next Kanapadi. Kanapadi teaching the next Kanapadi. A system requiring 15 to 20 years of training to produce a qualified transmitter cannot recover from one generation break. Cannot recover from one generation break. Now you see that one here, how many generations broke. When the economic substrate was removed and the institutional incentive structure was replaced, the trained teachers could not find students who could afford the time investment. The students who existed could not find teachers also. That is actually happened like this. Now this causal chain is bidirectional. It is not. Therefore, it is a tool. It is not a unidirectional. We have now established with the precision forward through time. Tapas formation was intact. Four cognitive obstacles were eliminated simultaneously. We have seen that particular table. Specific cognitive abilities were built in practitioners. Those abilities produce specific variable innovations. Now, let us see backward from the present. Formation transmission was interrupted through three documented mechanisms. The abilities that required the formation were not built. The innovations that required those abilities did not come from India. This is not a lament, it's a diagnostics. This is diagnostic, and the diagnostics has exactly one purpose: to make a prescription possible. Let us make a prescription possible. If we are really using Indian knowledge system with the right purposes, forgetting glorification, then we are going to really build a new India with that. It's a great opportunity. And rebuild the formation infrastructure, rebuild the specific cognitive abilities, the capacity for origination returns, not as nostalgia, not as a not as a claim about the past. No need to claim, no need to nag, no need to complain. As a design specification for the present, grounded in the most precisely documented formation system in the world. The question is not whether this is possible. The question is whether the will exists to design it. This is what the real thing. This is what everyone who is listening to this, the question is whether the will exists to design it. So we are coming to the second section B, that is innovation case studies. So far we spoke about the Indian theory of innovation. We saw that we saw that flow chart. We saw that six stages of pratibha, and how that pratibha is built. And we have seen that what are all the things which is actually against pratibha, and how those can be eliminated with the tapas, and how such a person is built. Now we are going to take minimum 15 to 20 case studies. Each case study in most of the places, they glorify and stop. We start from there. We start from where they stop. We are going to speak about how that particular ability got developed and how that can be replicated. That is the purpose of our sessions. That is the purpose of our session. Our sessions are futurist. Our sessions are for applied research. So now let us see section B, innovation case studies, process plus product. Entering the innovation gallery. What you are about to encounter is not a list of ancient achievements. It's a series of forensic confirmation. Now, for each innovation, I am going to show you minimum 15 to 20 innovations here. Everything example of pratibha. Everything example of pratibha, 15 to 20. And for each innovation, what are the things you are going to say? What was the problem being solved? Prayojana. Samvedana went to Prayojana. What was the problem? What was the problem being solved? Nobody got up from their bed one day and decided that I am going to invent this today. There was a Samvedana, there was a Prayojana. There was a detailed study on that. What was the problem being solved? What was the cognitive move that produced the solution? What tapas formation mechanism produced that cognitive capacity? Important. What made this innovation reproducible? Not a one-time accident. None of these ancient Indian inventions were jugad. Jugad is a term developed by our generation here. It is not workaround. That is what here. What made this innovation reproducible? Not a one-time accident. What modern questions does this raise? This is what we are going to speak one by one. So we are coming to our first innovation that is related to chemistry. Now, how do you transform unstable toxic raw materials into stable therapeutically potent compounds? The innovation. Rasaratnakara attributed to Nagarjuna, 8th century CE, documents distillation, paka, sublimation, upatika, calcination, marana, recombination, bandhana, each step with the condition, sequence and quality test documented. No jugad. What was the cognitive skill required for that? systematic protocol documentation, the understanding that the order of operation and the conditions at each step determine the outcome as much as the raw material. This is what the thing. Can you think that this is an 8th century CE, 8th century thinking? Now, what made tapas formation act, tapas formation anger, nidithyasana, that is pillar 1. Knowledge becomes the practitioner's own embedded reality, not borrowed understanding. It is not the Rasa Shastra chemist had internalized the transformation sequences as a lived cognitive object, not a checklist. So, Shashrata Veda orientation, our pillar 1, that is our tapas, the willingness to follow observational evidence wherever it leads, even when it contradicts the received formula. Modern question, what is the difference between a recipe and a protocol? A modern question. Why does reproducibility require the practitioner to have internalized the logic, not merely the step? Reproducibility requires internalizing the logic, not merely mugging up step. Internalizing the logic. That is what the key thing in that. Now let us say, what was a pratibha krama for that? This is a pratibha krama, 6-stage thing, 6-stage step for innovation of that Rasa Shastra chemistry. Please, if necessary, take a photograph of this. Pratibha krama, this is the innovation, ancient Indian innovation stages. Prayojana, patients harmed by crude preparation. Samvedana made it impossible to walk past. Rana made the obligation to future patients non-negotiable. Avasara, that is our toxicity kills. No approximation acceptable when the preparation enters a human body. That is avasara. Then Saukya Viveka, stripped to the essential variable, process sequence, not raw material composition, determines therapeutic outcome. That is process sequence. Now, Tantra, Anuvritti plus Meta, the same purification principle applied recursively across 18 stages. Each stage a controlled transformation held in the trained mind as one living sequence. Siddhanta, Siddhanta is the real takeaway from this for publication. Siddhanta, that is bioavailability is a function of process, not element, a principle at the heart of modern pharmaceutical sciences. This was available, this was known to our ancestor on 8th century CE. What is the pratibha? The protocol is the medicine. The protocol is the medicine. The method of preparation is itself the therapeutic agent. We cannot just say, we cannot read this history and go. If we just read this as a history and go, there is no learning from Indian knowledge system. That is the reason we have to understand Pratibha Krama. In Pratibha Krama, we come to know exactly. Otherwise, you cannot go to student and say like that, this is what ancient this, you also do. That student is not a fool. That student is not going to teach that student. When nothing was available with him, he did this much. He did this much, and he is recorded. He is still not broken. Even now in foreign countries, they are also learning the same thing. That is what actually makes us a proud Indian. That is what should lead us. That is what should really make us to look for tomorrow. And this is what we should be teaching in our colleges. Now coming to second innovation example, wood steel. Now see the image here. It was wood steel. From 3rd century BCE to 17th century CE, Indian smiths produced wood steel, extraordinary simultaneous strength and flexibility, very good for sword. That is the reason Europeans wanted to make it, they could not. Now see the flexibility. What they say is that you can throw a cloth. With this one, you could cut that cloth. Just imagine what is the sharpness, what is the flexibility required there. That is the type of the mind we had. And we should not put a domain locked learning curriculum here. We hear people go and tell that is the wood steel, understand that one, it is for metallurgical people. No, that is wood steel, understand that one. It is to be spread to every discipline. Interdisciplinary, it has to be put to every. That is what our objective here. European and Middle Eastern metallurgists tried to replicate it for over 300 years. The attempts consistently failed. How failed? Consistently. Because for about 12 centuries, failed. The reason they failed, the secret was not the raw material. Anybody can find raw material. It was a precise temperature protocol at each stage of smelting. A narrow thermal window producing a specific microcrystalline structure. Carbide bands in a steel matrix. Carbide bands in a steel matrix. Let me tell you an example. You know, here there is a Toyota Innova. And another example I will tell. Bajaj Auto Rickshaw. Bajaj Auto Rickshaw is a very innocent small vehicle there on the road. But do you know what? Bajaj Auto Rickshaw is one of the most highly engineered vehicle in the world. Most highly engineered vehicle. Each and every gram steel, each and every dimension bending, each and every material is evaluated, and to keep the price minimum, and to with that price minimum give the maximum to the customer. And for your information, one more thing, till 3 months ago, do you know what was the GST on auto rickshaw? 28%. Auto rickshaw was considered as a luxury item. Okay, now I am coming to this. What I am saying is that many people try to copy Bajaj Auto Rickshaw and failed. Why? They can take measurement and they can go and they can make, but the processing, that is what exactly the secret of wood steel here. Processing means you can find material, you can take the measurement, you can have everything, but in processing. So this is one. The cognitive skill required. Process thinking. The material is the process. Change the sequence, change the temperature window, and you get ordinary steel. You know woods. So, tapas formation anger, anapada, naturalized multi-representational processing, the capacity to hold the complete transformation sequence, temperature, timing, material state at each stage as a simultaneous cognitive object. The same cognitive architecture that holds forward, backward, and interwoven board sequences in Kanapada simultaneously. Adhikara, motivational purity, pillar 3. The smelter's goal was steel, not the recognition. Once again, I am telling you that what is important is the basic philosophy. I was telling almost every day, journey is the reward, is a very simple sentence. But entire Japan, most of the companies, they built on that. Confucius principles available to everyone. Most of the Chinese companies, whether it is BYD, whether it is Huawei, whether it is Tencent, Alibaba, everything is built on Confucius principles. Because that is what our culture, and that is what running through our blood. Therefore, if anyone who can actually take up this Indian system, understand it properly, that is going to be the trigger. They can develop another innovation, and even see. Even top companies of the world, they are all built on certain philosophies, and that philosophy is not money making. That philosophy is a classical philosophy. Based on that, they are built. So the failure mode reveals the required ability. European replicators approach the process sequentially, one variable at a time. Sequential processing of a simultaneous multivariable protocol cannot reproduce it. So Woods-Smith understood this 2,300 years ago. Now let us see the pratibha krama of that. This is a pratibha krama, Indian innovation pipeline for the wool steel. The wool steel. Prayojana, Avasara, Sokshma Viveka, Tantra Meta Anivritti, Siddhanta, Pratibha. This is that pipeline, Indian innovation pipeline for developing that wool's steel. So we are going to the next innovation, that is metallurgy, the pillar and the mine. Case 1, Delhi Iron Pillar. Delhi Iron Pillar. Case 2, Zawar, Rajasthan. Controlled phosphoric content, that is what the Delhi iron pillar, 0.25%, creating a passive iron hydrogen phosphate hydrate film, a self-protective layer, corrosion engineering. The composition was controlled, the protection was designed. Similarly, case 2, Jawar, Rajasthan, industrial scale zinc distillation, retort furnaces, condensing chambers, product collection vessels found archaeologically. What was the cognitive skill required in both cases? Intentional material design, the final property specified first, the process engineered backwards from the desired outcome. Now, tapas formation anchor, the pata, metallistic structure awareness, pillar 1. Pata takes a continuous speech and dissolves the surface to reveal the generative structure beneath. Seeing beneath the surface to the structural level is the same act whether the medium is language or iron. Please understand the sentence. This is what the philosophy is saying for everything. Therefore, there is nothing that we should learn through silos. Seeing beneath the surface to the structural level is the same act whether the medium is language or iron. Now let us see metallurgy's pratibha krama. We have got pratibha krama developed for almost 15 to 20 innovation. And this is what the Indian innovation pipeline. So this is the Indian innovation pipeline for Delhi Iron Pillar and Sawar Singh. I am going little fast because I need 1 day, full day for this. It is a little difficult, but I am explaining all the key points to you. The bridge between chemistry and surgery. In both chemistry and metallurgy, the central cognitive achievement was identical. We are seeing chemistry and metallurgy. Outcome, process, material, not material, process, hope. The modern term is design for manufacturing or backward design. The Indian innovation, understanding that a transformation has a direction and that controlling the direction requires mapping every transition point, not just start and end states. This requires observation over many iterations, protocol documentation across generation, transmission through apprenticeship, body knowledge, not just text. Institutional continuity, the Sreni Guild as the container. I am going to speak about Sreni. Without the Sreni, Woods is a one-generation accident. One generation accident. Anyway, still better than Jugad. With the Sreni, it is a 1,500-year technological tradition. That is what the Sreni is. The same principle now applied to surgery. Ayurveda, surgical innovation as protocol science. Now, Shushruta Samhita, 101 surgical instruments, probes, forceps, scalpels, curved needles, catheters, specula, rhinoplasty using check tissue, step by step, reproducible detail, cataract surgery using curved needle, intestinal repair using live and membranes and biocompatible sutures. The cognitive skill, systematic observation plus reproducible protocol documentation, transferable surgical science. The procedure is written for the next surgeon, not for historians. The procedure is written for the next surgeon, not for historians. This is what the key thing. Our session is for teachers. Our session is for patriotic teachers. Our session is for the future generation. This is not for historians because Indian knowledge system can easily become a history and the people can tell philosophy and ultimately in the end ask what is the use of it. No one has got any answer. So that is what the real Indian knowledge system. If we understand, if we really go beyond, go beneath, we will understand that what is actually required. The cognitive skill, systematic observation plus reproducible protocol documentation is equal to transferable surgical science. Transferable, that is the reason. Even now, Sushmida's, this thing, even now, uh, these documentations are even now used. D2 formation angle, Athikara, prerequisite based competence design. Shushruta surgical prerequisites. Then now, Samvedana, that is a notice thing. Vidityasana. Now let us see Pratibha Krama. What is that? Indian Innovation Protocol. Indian Innovation, how they did. Sushruta surgical science. What is the Prayojana? What is Avasara? What is Sushma Viveka? Tantra Adhigara plus tri-domain. What is Siddhanta? What is the Siddhanta taken from here? Then the Pratibha, the reproducible surgical protocol written for the next surgeon, not for historian, still in use 2500 years later. Now, just to see each and everything in this session itself, I have pointed out minimum about 30 to 35 examples of ancient Indian innovation with post-mortem, understanding what is the prayojana, what is that, how they did that, what was the real capability built and how to replicate that. If any institution is there forward-looking, we are there to support and show that how this can be implemented and it can be differentiated and so that people, you will be the next Stanford or Oxford or Columbia. That can be done. Now let us go to the next one, simulation surgery. Okay, this will be very similar to the previous one. Let me go further from here. The plasma. This is a nanotechnology before the word existed. Nanotechnology even before the word nanotechnology existed. Plasma, calcined metal preparations in Ayurvedic medicine. The process, metals, gold, silver, copper, iron, mercury, subjected to Shodhana, purification, removing toxicity. Marana, calcination, reducing to ash. Amritakarana, stabilization. What modern analysis finds? X-ray diffraction of Swarna Pasma confirms particle sizes in the nanoscale range, 56 to 57 nanometer. Transmission electron microscopy, triangular and hexagonal gold nanoparticles. What was the cognitive skill required? What was the tapas formation really made them? What was the Nidithyasana really built them? And what was the Indian research pipeline? That is Pratibha Krama, Pasma Nanomedicine. What was the Prayojana? Differential patient outcomes from identical elemental compositions. Samvedana noticed. Rana made closing the gap obligatory. Avasara, some preparations heal. Some harm. The difference had to be understood before another patient was treated. Saushya Viveka, stripped to the essential variable. Particle size governs bioavailability, not elemental composition. The same goal, processed differently, produces different biological effects. Structure, it is structure anivritti. So this is what the Indian innovation pipeline. So for the PASMAs, now we are coming next to medical innovation. That is a protocol plus documentation. Because we have got only 20 minutes now. We have got many places to go. I am coming back to this one. This is our Indian knowledge system for the AI era. This is applied Indian knowledge system. Now we are coming to temple architecture. Temple architecture is the zenith. Many technologies converge and many requirements and needs are met. So we will see like this. We will see what are all the things. Spatial proportionality, mathematical ratios governing every dimension, cardinal orientation, solar alignment at the equinox and the solstice points, structural load distribution, weight bearing ratios for wall thickness, acoustic principles, chamber geometry, governing resonance. Even you know that in Tanjore, etc., on the pillar, you will get various musical instrument by just by tapping. The cosmological symbolism, each square assigned a deity element direction, means it is something like only a where eagles dare. That is the type of the engineering. It is blend of all sciences, whether it is philosophy, whether it is arts, whether it is engineering, whether it is architecture with ritual. So let us see what is a pratibha krama there. Means Indian innovation pipeline. Pratibha krama, temple architecture, vastu prasam mandala, prayojana. Prayojana, a sacred space must produce, yes, a sacred space must produce a specific unified human experience. Runner to the community and to the cosmic order. The building is an obligation, not a commission. Please understand this. The building is an obligation, not a commission. That is what the prayojana. This was there in the DNA of the person who planned it. Avasara, the consecration moment is unrepeatable. Every structural decision made before consecration permanent. Precision, Viveka plus Samadhi, 5 systems, mathematical, astronomical, structural, acoustic, cosmological, perceived as one integrated design language. Please understand, completely coming to one integrated design language from the first decision, not assembled afterwards. Structure, anuvritti, the same proportional rule, Tala module, governs both the deity figure and the structural member. One generative rule operating at every scale simultaneously. Siddhanta, form and function are not in tension. Important point. Form and function are not fighting each other. They are the same property expressed in different registers. Aesthetic specifications and engineering specification are the same document. Who split architect and civil engineer separate? Who split? Westerners. In India, they were together. This is what a classic example of Indian approach and Western approach. In Western, here it is not only architect and engineer. Everyone was combined. That is the reason they could produce this. Pratibha, a design language that unified 5 disciplines in one integrated system. The Garpagarikas resonant frequency matches the mantra's fundamental. Now we are coming to one specific temple, that is Brihadeshwara temple, that is in Tanjore. It is known for 216-ton capstone raised to 60 meters. People may think that some people wanted to do that. That is not our discussion here. Our discussion here, when someone wanted to do, we had the capability to do. And that capability we are spending foreign exchange and we are taking from somebody now. And how to build that gap, how to bridge that gap, how to build a generation that has got the same capability. That is the reason I am sitting here and you are sitting there. That is the real purpose of that. So the engineering, the capstone shadow does not fall on the ground at noon on the day of the temple's consecration. See the purpose. This is what to be built in stone. This required precise solar angle calculation integrated into the structural design. Structural design from the beginning. The construction, 216-ton capstone raised without cranes. Current hypothesis, a 6 kilometer inclined earthen ramp, 6 kilometer ramp from the neighboring village to the Sarapallam. Now see this one. What is the cognitive skill required? Now, before that, one building, one act of origination, no separation between discipline. This is what the interdisciplinary. What are the cognitive skill required? What are the tapas, formation, anger, spontaneous synthesis at civilizational scale? These are all the things. Prayatishwara. Now we are coming to another one, Shilpa Shastra. Form as function, aesthetic as engineering. The Shilpa Shastra design manuals encoded structural engineering ratios as aesthetic rules. It is combined. Column height, diameter ratios encoded as proportionately canons. Arc curvature expressed as divine form parameters. Wall batter, inward wall batter, inward slope described as devotional inclination. The why this matters? Aesthetic canon and structural specification are the same document. The builder reading the aesthetic rules is simultaneously following the engineering specification, or both of them are one, or they are of the same mind, or they are of the same culture. Never two separate documents required coordination, one integrated language. This is what Shilpa Shastra. Now let us see one by one. Now we are coming to water management. Mohenjo-daro, Vapi, the step wells and hydraulics. Now let us see. Pratibha krama of that step wells and this is what the Indian innovation pipeline. Prayojana, water scarcity, ecological depletion and social access are one problem. They integrate problem. This is what the differentiation. Like Westerners, we didn't split everything. We always looked. Means classic example is Manana Nidithyasana, because we don't think without emotion. We don't think without a value system. But for them, Bloom's taxonomy, cognitive, you only think. You go and bomb Iran. Means something like you only think. There is no value system there. There is no emotion there. In the same way, Nidithyasana is not psychomotor. It is not like that you have a muscle, go and hit. It is not like that. When we do something with our muscle, there is a value system on that. There is an emotion behind that. This is what the Indian system, anything and everything we see, we have got that holistic approach. This holistic approach is the thing made us different. And when we stopped it and we refused to change it, why I am telling refused to change it? India got independence on 79 years ago. Last 78 years, 79 years, who was the Macaulay? This is the question. If Macaulay is here, Macaulay was here, Macaulay is still here. Who is the Macaulay? That is what we have to really ask. Because Macaulay is not leaving. Even if we tell something now, it will come on a sheet of paper in the form of Macaulay. Because we will see that Macaulay's ghost is not leaving this country at all. Because some people are getting benefited with Macaulay. That is the main reason. So let us see this one, Indian way of Indian innovation pipeline for step wells and urban hydraulics. Now this Pratibha, the step well, social infrastructure, ecological instrument and hydraulic engineering in one structure, 2600 BCE. Now this is another interesting thing. Sudarshana Lake infrastructure as governance design. We have got a Pratima Krama for that Indian innovation, and we are going ahead because we have got only just 10 minutes. Infrastructure as a civilization philosophy. Now this is what Sreni system. I told you very specifically that India's original R&D ecosystem. This is what actually Indian knowledge system. Sreni, the guild system sustaining Indian craft and technological knowledge for over 2 millennia. What a Sreni was, knowledge holding institution with its own charter and laws, dispute resolution mechanism independent of the state, quality standards and enforcement protocols, training progression and apprentice to master, Shishyatva agreements, inter-guild knowledge exchange protocols. See how modern our ancient was. How modern our ancient was. What a Sreni actually did. Converted individual pratibha moments, that is Siddhanta, into institutional knowledge, ensuring one person's innovation became the next generation's foundation. This is what the point. One person's innovation is becoming other person's foundation, not the next generation's rediscovery. This is what the point is. Ensuring one person's innovation became the next generation's foundation, not the next generation's rediscovery. Cognitive skill, collective intelligence architecture, designing institutions that accumulate knowledge faster than individual can lose it. Another important point. Designing institutions that accumulate knowledge faster than individuals can lose it. Now, what are tapas formation angers? There is a Nalanda principle applied to craft knowledge. The guild is not the building. The guild is the trained people inside it. Here we think institution means building. We think institution means building. Afterwards, nothing. When Nalanda burned, the knowledge survived in trained minds. When the guilds were economically dissolved, the knowledge had no minds left to train. Now, what is the pratibha krama for that? This is what the Indian innovation pipeline, pratibha krama for the Sreni guild system. Now, crafts as applied science, the knowledge in the hands. Common assumption, craft knowledge is folk knowledge, experimental, informal, pre-scientific. It lacks the rigor of formal scientific knowledge. That is a common assumption. What is the reality? The wood's smelter knew exactly what he was doing. Encoded in temperature judgment, flame color, hammer rhythm, cooling sound. The indigo dyer knew exactly what she was doing. Encoded in fermentation smell. Understand? Encoded in fermentation smell. Surface sheen. Test cloth color. Redox chemistry, pH, temperature, reduction potential. Performed empirically centuries before European chemistry formalized the reaction. Why? Just touch your hand on your heart and say, are you not proud of this? Touch your hand on your heart and think, why can't we replicate this? Touch your hand on your heart and ask, who is actually blocking this? So the Stepwell Mason knew exactly what she was doing. Encoded in drainage gradient, stone selection, mortar consistently. This knowledge was formal. It was precise. It was transmissible. It could travel. When encoding medium was trained human body, not the written page. Encoding medium was the trained human body. It got transferred from my body to another body, then body to body, generations. The cognitive skill, Bloom's Dave, psychomotor level 5, naturalization applied to applied science. The domain knowledge so completely internalized it is no longer performed, it flows. So now what is the pratibha krama of that? Pratibha krama, that is Indian innovation pipeline. Embodied craft science, prayojana, functional excellence for the communities served. The craft must work Rana to the farmer whose crop demands on the dye's light fastness, the warrior whose life depends on the steel. That was Rana. Avasara, the craft must work every time. No margin for imprecision when the entire livelihood and use depend on the outcome. Precision, Viveka encoded in body, temperature judgment. These are all the thing craft science. That is why we have done research for each and every innovation of our Indian knowledge system. What is the pratibha krama of that? What exactly made them work? And once you understand this one, this can actually go to curriculum. That is the new generation educational institution. That is the type of the education institution will create youth. They are AI irreplaceable. They are AI irreplaceable. They are the type of people they throw WhatsApp and Instagram. They throw WhatsApp and Instagram. While we blame our students for WhatsApp and Instagram, we do not think that in Europe, almost all Europeans were thought leaders. Almost all innovations came from Europe. And for centuries and centuries, they produced thought leaders. And for centuries and centuries, it was a free society. They had including free sex type of situation. And these type of people, they forgot all such pleasures. They decided, they got attracted to certain domains because there were people, they used to explain subjects in very attractive way. Means every teacher should be a marketeer of his or her subject. In such a situation, students are not going in the wrong way. They are going behind the excitement, momentary excitement of WhatsApp and Instagram, only because they are not finding similar excitement elsewhere. If we can give the similar excitement here, then the things are going to be totally different. Just read the biography of Bill Gates or Steve Jobs or anybody. They all lived in such a system where there were possible with they could have done anything, but still they stuck to computers, they stuck to technology, they stuck to medicine, because we have to actually create a situation that they must find value in this. Now it is coming to, I think, only 3 minutes more for 9 o'clock. I have almost come to the conclusion. I could have shown some 10 to 15 more example with the pratibha krama. So now with all your permission, let me stop here so that you can ask a question. I am stopping here now. And what I do is that we didn't get much time for any discussion. I will give you my phone number. If anyone has got any genuine question, you can always call me. It is 967-367-0033. There is WhatsApp on that. I am giving the number because I know that we could not spend much time on interaction. So if anyone has got any question and if I know the answer, I will tell. See, there was a question about the oral tradition. I will tell you, oral tradition can be in any language. It can be Marathi, it can be English, it can be Sanskrit, it can be Malayalam. But oral tradition is important, and now we do not have the opportunity for that. That is the reason our researchers, they develop an extempore speaking simulator for giving students the same opportunity of oral tradition.
If you have any more questions for Dr. Suresh Nambudri, please put it in the chat. We'll pick it up.
Literal meaning of vikrama. I have repeated that several times. Vikrama. V means you are transcending, going beyond. And then krama means a step. Means you are crossing the step. You are actually beating your constraints, beating your limitation. That is what vikrama.
Please note, everybody, your certificate will be ready for download within a day or two in the LMS. Make sure you complete all the task MCQs activities, and also there is an overall feedback that is there in the LMS that you need to complete, and then you will be able to download your certificate from the LMS. Now, the LMS access will be there till the 10th of April. Now, once the certificate is ready in the LMS, this will be informed you through email as well as through your WhatsApp group. Okay, so please keep an eye out for that information to come to you. Okay. In the meanwhile, make sure you complete all the task MCQs and activities in the LMS. Okay, and also the feedback.
So no more questions.
Now let me just check YouTube also. I don't think any more questions, sir.
No more questions.
Yeah.
Okay, then today is the concluding day of this session. So thanks a lot. Thanks for your participation and attention.
All right. If there are no more questions, I think we will conclude.